Okay, so the next step in the rebuild process, we're going to be reinstalling the cover for the gearbox. And to do that, the first thing we'll do is install the bearing for the input shaft into this pocket here. Since our measurements showed that we don't need a shim, we're good to go. If you do need to shim the input shaft, you'll put the shim in first and then drop the bearing in on top of it. So what we're going to do is heat this cover up real good and then drop that bearing in. Once we've got the cover nice and hot, should be able to drop in that bearing. And we'll just make sure it's all the way down, which it is. Next we can install the Kickstart idler gear. The shouldered side goes down, followed by circlip to hold it in place. It's kind of hot right now. Okay. So what's that? Once that's installed, we can also install the Kickstarter gear. I'm going to install the seal for the Kickstarter. And I'm also going to install the seal for the output shaft. And you remember this seal faces the opposite direction of the others. So get that tapped in till it's flush. So we'll be installing the Kickstarter segment gear. And you'll want to inspect the teeth for wear or damage. It's very common that the first or second teeth are damaged on this. And you also want to check the shaft for damage here. If that, where the tapered bolt fits, if that's really damaged, you'll want to address that too. So just slide that through its bushing and its seal. And there's a hole here in the cover that the end of this spring needs to fit into. And sometimes you can do that by hand, and sometimes you need to grab a tool to help. Once the Kickstart segment is installed, you can also install the Kickstarter. It will need to be installed when we put the cover on. Okay, so that's temporarily installed. And you can check the operation of the segment gear and the idler gear. Make sure they're engaging and disengaging smoothly. Okay, and then the final thing we'll need to take note of is this cup washer that goes on the input shaft. It sticks, the curved end goes down, and it will stick to the back of this bearing. And the best way I found to do that is to use some sticky spline lube, which is real sticky, and apply it to this bearing, the inner race, and to the cupped washer, and then stick it into place. It will hold it there. But we'll need to reheat this cover when we install it, and so we'll want to make sure that that is in place and doesn't fall off. So something to keep in mind. Before we install it, we're going to put some gasket sealant on both sides of the gasket, and then we'll be ready to heat this case and install the cover and install the cover. Okay, and so we're going to reheat the cover, get it nice and hot, and then we'll be able to reinstall it. Got the cover nice and hot. Remember, we've got the spring and the collar placed on the input shaft, and then the cupped washer. We're going to stick that on the back of the bearing here. We also have our shims in place on the other bearings, and we are ready to install the cover. So I'm going to engage the Kickstarter and then lower it down like that. And that's seated. Following that, we can install the 7 washers and nuts that secure the cover. And go around and torque those down to spec. After the cover nuts are torqued down to spec, you can install the output flange. We want to check the seal surface here to see if there's any wear, any grooves, any pits, and then I'm just going to lightly lubricate that. Line up the key on the output shaft and drop that into place, followed by the large wave washer, then followed by the slotted nut. Okay, then we are ready to use the tool to tighten the slotted nut. So we've got the tool installed on the output flange to hold it. And we've got the special socket to fit the slotted nut installed. And this has a smaller output shaft, and the torque spec for this is 87 foot-pounds. The later shafts were larger in diameter. They didn't have the key, and they were torqued to a lot higher torque spec than that. But you can do is slide a bar or something like that to help hold it against your body, and then torque it down to specs. Okay. Then we can just remove the output flange holder. And move on to the next step. Okay. The next thing we can do is install the speedometer drive gear. And interestingly, when we took apart this gearbox, this was missing. So I luckily had a spare. I had a couple of spares, and you can see This is the early version, and this is the later version. The later version had these spiral grooves cut in it to force the oil back down into the gearbox. This is a better design, less likely to leak oil out of the gearbox, out of the speedometer. So we just install it with the pointy end down, and it goes right down in there, followed by the grommet that holds the speedometer cable. Okay, and then the vented speedometer cable bolt. All right, just finishing up a few more things here. I'm going to install the oil drain bolt. This is a magnetic one. And a new copper crush washer for it. Okay. Also the fill bolt and a new crush washer there. Okay. And then I think the last thing we have to do is install the seal for the input shaft. We'll lubricate the lip and then install it with the seal driver. Okay, and after that seal is installed, the gearbox build is pretty much done.